Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Rita Saroyan. I am author of the Macabre and Really Disturbing Things. And this video is going to be about giving tips to new writers. However, if there's an existing writer who can take something away from this, fabulous. But otherwise, this is what this is about. It's for new writers and giving them tips. I didn't get any tips and I had to learn the hard way. So I thought that I could do a video and help you out. If you see me looking down, it's because I have notes on my computer. You're right beneath the computer, or at least I'm right beneath the computer. And I wrote some notes so that I won't lose my train of thought. I will lose my train of thought anyway, because that's who I am. And so if I pause a little bit, bear with me, because that's how my brain operates. So before we begin, if you will visit my website, I will greatly appreciate it. My website is ritasaroyan.com, RITASAROYAN.com. So thank you so much. And if you scroll at the bottom of my website all the way down, you will see the Facebook icon. And if you click on that, it'll take you to my author page on Facebook. If you would like that page, I will greatly appreciate it as well. So thank you so much. I also want to take this time to thank my loyal readers for their support, for always reading my books, and also for liking them, because that's the most important thing for a writer. You can read a book and hate it, but when you read a book and you get great feedback, that's amazing. So thank you for my loyal readers. I also would like to take this time to thank Dave Bedrosian. Dave Bedrosian is a friend of mine on Facebook. He's my personal Facebook. And what he does is every time that I put anything on my author web page, anything that I post there, he goes ahead and shares it on his personal web page. He doesn't have, not web page, actually Facebook page. And I really greatly appreciate that, Dave. Thank you so very much. You don't have to do that, but out of the kindness of your heart. So out of the kindness of my heart, as appreciation, I would like to offer you any book that you would like, free of charge. So if you visit ritasaroyan.com, please visit and then choose a book, and then message me on our personal Facebook page and tell me what book you have chosen. Include an email where I can send it, because they're ebooks and free of charge. This is just any book that you want. As a great appreciate. Thank you. It's very much appreciated. I feel that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you very much. So before we continue, I would like to tell you that this video is about realness. This is how I live my life, realness. I don't put airs. I don't make believe I'm something I'm not. So this video is the same. So I did not hire a camera crew. This is being done from my phone. Also, I did not edit a thing. So it's like if I wanted it to be something like if you were sitting with me in this room right now with me, instead of a video. So if I fall off the chair, I don't foresee anything like that happening. But if I fall off the chair, you're just gonna have to wait for me to pick myself up. So there's no editing, no nothing. It is what it is, for better or worse. So I hope you appreciate it and enjoy it anyway. But nothing. There's no editing. It's my phone. I have no camera crew. I'm by myself. So just me and now you. So thank you for joining me. And so let's begin. So my first, the first tip I want to give to writers is, I have a little cold, so if I sniffle a little bit, forgive me for that. If you hear sounds outside, sometimes this neighborhood tends to be a bit noisy. Noisy. And children will scream around, there'll be trucks. So if you hear that, yeah, that's happening. So just ignore it and just try to concentrate on my voice. I hope it doesn't get too loud, because then I have to do this again. So, okay, the first tip is criticism. Okay, so there are two types of criticism, and you will get one and or both when you're a writer. Whether you like it or not, whether you seek it or not, you're going to get criticism one way or the other. So there are two. There's constructive criticism, and then there's destructive criticism. You will get both, because people, that's how they are. So constructive criticism is feedback designed to improve your writing. So any constructive criticism that you get, I would recommend that you would listen to them, to any constructive criticism, because the thing is that whether it makes sense or not, most of the time it will, and it's something coming from your readers or someone who read your manuscript, and what they tell you is just an improvement, to improve your writing. If you listen to it, it will help you. So it's not meant to be, malicious or anything. For example, if someone would tell you something like, don't use the word "and" too much, because you've written "and Mary, and Joan, and Rob," it might become a little redundant. So they might tell you instead, then use commas. Mary, comma, Joe, comma, and Bob or Rob, whoever I said, I don't remember. But that will help your writing. So that's constructive criticism. Destructive criticism it does not provide any feedback whatsoever that will help you. It's just done negatively and maliciously. It comes from a person, probably, people do that all the time, and they cut down people. So don't go there with them. When you hear destructive criticism, just push it off your shoulders, be done with it, and don't even listen to it. An example of destructive criticism is someone reads your story and then they'll come back and say, that was a stupid story, you suck as a writer. That's very destructive criticism. So you don't even want to listen to that at all. So don't even bother entertaining that kind of criticism. Constructive, yes. Destructive, no. My next tip is, don't allow anyone to change your writer's voice, because this will happen even in school. Like when you take creative writing, a lot of the instructors will try to do that. They will try to change your, not on purpose, but they tend to put in their own insights, like if they wrote whatever it was, and completely change your writer's voice. For instance, because a writer's voice is a unique personality you give your characters, as well as how you put everything together. Your writing, your unique writing. This is why you will recognize writers, even if they don't have their name on it. You know that it's certain writers because they write a certain way. That is a writer's voice. And also the personality you give characters. Every character should have a different personality in a different voice in your books, just like real life. Nobody is a cookie cutter. Everybody has their own personality, or they should. So it is with your characters. If you write a character in one of your books and your readers, and you meant that character to be annoying, and you get feedback from your readers and they say that character was annoying as hell, that's good. You did your job. You did your job, because you created an annoying character, and that's exactly how it came across. If you create a character that says things like, I ain't caring about no bears, okay, and then you get feedback and say that's not correct English. They shouldn't say that, your character shouldn't say that. It should say something like, I don't care about the bears. But that's changing your writer's voice, because your character was meant to say it like that. Your character might come from Texas or wherever. And that's the way the character speaks. So don't change that character because somebody else told you. Don't change it, and don't allow anyone to change your writer's voice that way. Develop your characters the way you want them to be. Create them as you see them. And they're your characters. They're made up. They're fabricated from your brain. Make them what you want them to be. The next tip is the more you write, the better you'll get. And that is definitely true. So write all the time. And this is coming from someone who's, I'm a writer, and we procrastinate a lot. I mean, but write all the time. The more you write, the better you'll get. I have revised and revamped my own books, my earlier books. I've gone back to see, to see how they sound now. And I cringe because I don't even know that I wrote that, because I have changed so much as a writer since I wrote my first books. So when you write a lot, you grow as a writer. You'll see that you improve, that books that you wrote previously a few years ago are not in the same voice actually as the ones that you're currently writing. This is because you change as a writer. You improve as a writer. And I've looked at my books in the past, and I have revamped them and fixed them because they no longer match how I write now. And I just look at it and I'm like, who the hell wrote this? And it happens, so the more you write, you will grow. But then also, if you don't want your books, the previous books, to sound like that, you're going to have to revamp and revise them and write them according to how you're writing now. But if you write a lot and you're going to do this eternally, you're going to be revamping all the time. So you might want to leave those alone and then just go on with yourself as a writer. You grow, keep writing. My next tip is it is often said, write what you know. Okay. That you can take literally, but don't take it too literally. Okay. Because, like, for instance, I don't have first-hand experience with my spooky books, my horrors. Well, except for Demon, because that was based on true personal experiences and events. So aside from that one, I don't hang out with all these things, vampires and whatever. So do I write what I know? Yes, I write what I know because I love horror. I love that genre, and I love thrillers. So that said, then I have immersed myself in that. I watch movies, like I read books about them. So it's something that I know. But it doesn't mean to write what you know, meaning like if you want to write a ghost story, let's say, for instance, but you don't know anything about it, but you have some ideas, but you don't exactly know anything about it. What you know about is cars, but you don't want to write a book on cars because that's not what's calling to you. What's calling to you is a ghost story. But then, but it says write what you know, so you're going to write what you know. You're going to write about cars. I don't know anything about cars, but then you decide you're going to write a book about cars, talking about the carburetor. Is that something? The engine, yada, yada, right? It's going to be boring for you because if you take it literally, that's what you know cars. But, so don't take it literally. Like, write what you know means, like, if you know about ghosts, if you know about horror, then write that. You wouldn't write something historical if you don't know it at all, and it doesn't call to you, so that's what it means by write what you know. Even if you don't know, you don't have to know every little thing about it, but it's something that calls you, something that attracts you, and you have a passion for it, if you will. You're going to make shit up anyway. So make it up and believe in it. Which brings me to my next advice. Do a lot of research. A lot of research. Research everything that you don't know. Like, you can write about ghosts even if you don't know about ghosts. If it's calling you, then you do write about ghosts. But then, since you don't know a lot about them, So that's when you do research. And, you know, what do ghosts do? How do they appear? That kind of thing. Like, for instance, if you're going to write a setting, your book sets in Salem, Mass., and you don't know anything about it, but you want to say that you want to talk about the weather in Salem, but you do not know anything, you're going to have to research that. So, like, literally research that and go into find out everything about Salem, how the weather changes, how the trees in the winter change, or not. If there's a downtown Salem, you know, for instance, if you're going to have characters going downtown, you might want to research what it is that Salem looks like downtown. Little things like that, and big things, you know. Everything has to, don't just make up things about Salem, but you can put facts and fictions together. So that's my other advice. Add facts to your fiction. So you can have, let's go again with Salem. You have Salem and then you have facts, and it's like your downtown Salem. There is a store. I don't know that this is not fact. I'm making this up, but let's say that in fact, there is a store downtown. There's a shoe store, and right next to it, there's a bookstore. Okay, but you want a store or shop for your character. So you can place that shop in between the bookstore and the shop store, and the bookstore and the shoe store, even though there's no space. But since you're making it up, you can, you know, you make some space and you put that in there. But when people Google the stores, they are there. You know, make sure that it's okay to write the stores in your book. Otherwise, you'll get sued. So, you know, and but always, you don't have to add facts to your fiction, but what happens when you do that is that the story becomes more believable. It creates interest and it pulls your readers in. I know that you've read some books or watched some movies that you look at it and you doubt, although they say fiction is not based on fact, it's not true events. You kind of doubt it because you know for a fact sometimes that what they put in there actually exists or happens. Some kind of mysterious something happened. And you know that happened. So now you're saying, is this book like actual? Is this based on reality? So that's what happens. And then it pulls in your readers because it makes it interesting when you add fact to fiction. For instance, my book Coven, I fabricated most of it, of course. You know, that's not based on true stories. I fabricated most of it. But there is truth there about how the witches escaped persecution. Those are facts. There was a group back then when the witch hunts were going on that they found several witches with witch paraphernalia. I mean, they had like their candles, their stones, everything there. And when the witch hunters came in, it was there for them to see. They caught them red-handed. But what happened was, I don't know how they did this. They told the witch hunters that they were just, one told them that he was just experimenting to see if actually there was truth in witchcraft, and he found out that there was no truth in it, so it was bogus, and that's what he was doing with it. He was experimenting, and they let him go. They did not persecute him. They did not arrest him. Nothing. He went scot-free. They didn't even threaten him, and because he said that. So I have that in the book. To tie things in together with my fiction, I put that as fact. I have several other things that are like that as well throughout the book. But when you tie it together, it becomes more interesting. So try that. My next tip is read. Read a lot. Read everything. Like, read everything. Why? Because reading improves your writing. It improves you as a writer. It really does. Your vocabulary will improve. That's why when you go back to revise and revisit the books that you wrote previously, you might cringe, because as you read and write often, your vocabulary will improve, and the way you write and put things together. You might learn when you read other people's material. You might learn new writing strategies and techniques. You might learn some. You're not going to copy it. You're not going to copy the way they write, but you will learn writing techniques. Certain things, like you won't read like Stephen King or even me. You would not read it and then go, oh, I like the way she writes, so you're going to go and copy my voice. You have to find your own voice. However, learning writing techniques comes with it. Like, taking the writing technique is not the same thing as taking the writer's voice. Also, reading a lot inspires you to write your own book. And that's important for writers, because 99% of the writers, if not 100, like I said, we procrastinate a lot. We find everything to do but write. We love writing, but I don't know what it is. I don't have any answers for you. But we'll say, yeah, I'm gonna write. I'm gonna write this afternoon. Never happens. Okay, so I'm gonna do it tomorrow. It still doesn't happen. And then you go, okay, then definitely today. No. We find anything else to do other than to write. We find excuses not to write. And I don't know why that happens, because we love to write. Nobody's forcing us, but we always procrastinate. There's so many memes about writers by writers. They show exactly that. And, but if you read a good book, it inspires you to start working on your own manuscript. The next tip is, don't limit yourself to what has already been written. Don't limit yourself to what has already been written. Okay, for example, if you write about werewolves, so your typical werewolves can be killed with the silver bullet, right? They become werewolves from a bite or a scratch from another werewolf, correct? They transform themselves under the full moon. So those are typical. There's something that others have written. There's nothing wrong with creating a werewolf that does that. I'm not saying don't ever, you can create your werewolf to be exactly like the others. I mean, you're going to create an entirely new story anyway. So, you can use those, but you don't have to do what others. You can create your own werewolf, meaning maybe your werewolf cannot be killed by silver. Maybe what takes down your werewolf is any type of bullet. I'm making that up, so bear with me. Yeah, any type of bullet. However, here's the kicker. So it could be any type of bullet, but it has to be through the heart. But it's the werewolf that you create doesn't have one heart. It has two hearts, and they're both located somewhere else. Like they're not together. The two hearts are located in different locations, in different areas of the body. And they both have to be pierced at the same time. So maybe that's your werewolf. Maybe your werewolf did not come from a bite or a scratch from another wolf. Maybe it was a curse. Or maybe they turn into werewolf by what's the word I'm looking for? I told you that I will blank out. a government experiment. Thank you. Okay, so it might be that a government experiment went wrong, and that's why your werewolf turned into a werewolf. So you could do anything with whatever creatures and characters you want to create. You don't have to say, well, I would like this werewolf to be, it turns into a male. It's a male in human form, but when it turns into a werewolf, it's female. But nobody has written that. Keep in mind that no one had written about werewolves until someone did. I know that sounds redundant, but think about it. And now everybody goes by the standard, correct? So you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can create your own. You see what I'm saying? Okay. My next advice is write your first draft through, not just outlines. Now, if outlines are your thing, I'm not telling you that it's wrong. You can go ahead and do your outlines if you want. The reason I say do not write, just write it through and no outlines, is because you spend time writing outlines, but outlines are just the gist of what the book will contain. It's almost like chapter titles. Not quite, because you're going to explain certain little things. But while you're doing that, you could be writing your story, because you're going to go back anyway to revise it, to fix it. You know, you have to read it again over. So you have to, the reason you will write your story through is to tell yourself your story first. You have to tell your story first to yourself before you can tell it to anyone else. So write the entire book. Leave it alone for a day or two. Don't think about it. It doesn't exist. And then go back and read it again, like if it's a book that someone else wrote. And I guarantee you that you will be making changes and you improve what you've written. So to me, I'm not saying that writing an outline is a waste of time, but if you want to get into it completely, then if you write it, you're going to have to go back anyway. You're going to have to go back anyway, but you're telling your story to yourself. You understand? You have to tell your story to yourself before you can tell it to anyone, so it could be credible. Oh my God, and I have to tell you this. My next point, my next tip, please, punctuation, people, please, okay? So I see a lot of this, whether it's short stories, novels, or whatever. I have writers who ask me for advice or like my opinion on their book. So they send me something. They email me like a little bit, because I don't have time to read like an entire book and correct it or say anything. But the thing is this, that a lot of them don't have punctuation. It's like a run. The whole story is like a one run-on sentence. It's exhausting to read. It really is. So use punctuation, and not only use punctuation, but use the right punctuation. Okay? So I've seen this meme. This is not mine, but there's a difference. Punctuation is a difference from let's eat, grandma, let's eat, comma, grandma, to let's eat, grandma. No punctuation. Let's eat, grandma, period. So one is let's eat, comma, grandma. Of course, if you're telling your grandmother, do you want to eat? Let's eat, grandma, you're telling someone else that you're going to eat your grandmother. Punctuation is important, okay? So, and I've seen this as well. I know that people talk with like a question mark at the end of their sentences, even if they're not questions. They'll say, this is how a lot of people speak. I was going to the store yesterday, and then I saw some shoes and a purse to go with it. I know you've heard that. If that's the way you talk, that's fine. Don't write that way, though. I just finished reading a book that, although it was really good, the book was very nicely written. However, that kind of punctuation was everywhere, and it aggravated the hell out of me. That might be a personal thing for me. It might not. You might not care, but most people will. It's an aggravating thing. So if you don't need a comma, don't write a comma. Even if you speak that way, think about it. It's a statement. A statement is a period. If you say, holy shit, that's an exclamation point, correct? But if you say, I'm going to dinner tomorrow, period. Not I'm going to dinner tomorrow. Even if you think that way, you're saying a statement. So it's not a question mark. A question mark is like, are you going to dinner tomorrow? Will you join me? Question mark. So not only use punctuation, but also use the correct punctuation where it belongs, because that would improve your writing a lot as well. Also, capitalize. Capitalize, please. Because you start your sentence, I see it, and it's like, the horse was in the house. The T at the first is not capitalized. It should. And then you put period. And then you start the other one and no capitalization whatsoever. So you have to do that. So pay attention to those things. And I cannot emphasize punctuation enough. It definitely, people definitely need, I've read 2 books that were not mine this past days. Well, I didn't read them in 2 days, but like, this couple of months. And they were like that. They had question marks everywhere. And I'm like, did I miss something? And it throws you off. It throws the entire content off. When I read, I suppose you're the same way. But when I read, I like to disappear into the book. Like it's a true story. It becomes another world to me. And while I'm reading, that is my world. But when I see something like that, it pulls me right out. And it pulls me right out. And now I know that I'm reading a book. And I don't like to know that I'm reading a book. I want to be so engrossed in that book that it's reality to me until I finish, reading for that day or whatever. Not that I think that it's real forever. You get me, right? So, but once I see punctuation like that or run-on sentences on and on and on and on, it drives me crazy, and it pulls me right out of the content. And now, it's very difficult for me to go back in. So punctuation, people, please, please. My next tip is believe in what you write. Believe always in what you write. And I don't mean if you're writing about a ghost story. My eyes wander all over the place. This is how I talk. I'll talk to you like that in person. So if that's happening, I'm not aware that it happens. But if that's happening now, that's what it is. I'll talk to you in person just like that. It's like my eyes go everywhere. I'm seldom still, even in my sleep, so I'm told. I don't know because I'm asleep. But that's what's going on. Believe in what you write. I don't mean that if you are going to write about that ghost story, you're going to believe in ghosts necessarily. Or, a demonic thing, you're going to believe in that necessarily. What I mean is believe in what you're writing, in your story. Believe in your story. If when you're writing your book, you think it sounds like bullshit, it's going to come across as bullshit. It's going to come across as bullshit to your readers. If you yourself think that your book is bullshit, yeah, it's bullshit. Because you're not believing it. You're like, this is a bunch of crap. You need to start over. If you start feeling that way about your book, you need to start over. Because if you put it out like that, your readers are going to open it up and go, well, this is a bunch of crap. It's the same thing. So you believe in your stories, believe in yourself, writing the story, believe in your story, and your readers will believe it as well. Another thing that's really important, and this has been like prominently in my face these couple of weeks, and this is why I want to address it. It's about self-publishing. Okay. Be careful with self-publishing. Be careful, because most of them are bogus. They will promise you the moon, take your money, take your hard-earned money, and do absolutely nothing for you. The first book I published was self-published. I paid for that. And they told me to send, a picture with my cover. I didn't need to do anything else but send the picture and send my manuscript. So my manuscript is like, I don't have front and back, front and back. It's just like in the computer, and it's that kind of thing. They printed it exactly the way I send it to them. They did nothing. I'm not going to name names, but because I don't want to be sued. Because if they decide they're going to sue me, I mean, I have my book, I have proof, but I don't want to go there. I don't want a legal battle. All right, I'm already in a legal battle with another. So, but they're very conniving. Self-publishing businesses are very conniving. Okay, if you see a self-publishing company, any self-publishing company that tells you that your book will become a bestseller, they're full of crap. No one can guarantee you that your book will be a bestseller. Not even for Stephen King, and he's known. Not even for Dean Koontz. It cannot be guaranteed. Sales cannot be guaranteed. Bestsellers are bestsellers because of what they sold. No one can tell you that you're going to sell 1 million copies, because you might sell 1 copy. You might sell more than 1 million, but no one can guarantee that, because no one knows until it's out there. So any self-publishing company that guarantees that you're going to be a bestseller, don't go there. And I've seen them a lot. I see them on my Facebook. I see them in commercials. I see them all the time. And I'm like, oh my God. It's, and then the new writer, just like me, I fell for the crap. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a self-published book. Yeah, that fell through. And they tell you they're going to put it everywhere, and they're going to give you they're going to publicize it and yada yada. Nothing. They did nothing. They took my money. I could have done the same thing at home and put the covers together. It would have been a mess, just like that one book, because that's how it came back, a mess. I was completely embarrassed and infuriated, and of course, they didn't give me my money back. So I'm talking, I speak from experience. So you have to be very careful. I've seen them saying, are you ready to publish your bestseller? That's already a no. That's already a no. There is a company recently, and I'm not going to name names because, again, but if you have seen them, you will recognize by what I'm saying. Okay, there's a company that says that will help you self-publish, etc. But then you have to, what they want from you is you have to fill out an application. I've never heard such a thing. Okay, so you have to fill out an application so that to talk to them. But here's the thing. Along with the application, you have to submit a payment of $100. I checked them out to see so that I can tell you. I wanted to know what it was all about. And what do you get for $100? A conversation. The reasoning behind the $100 for them, the application, the $100, is they say that sometimes writers will make appointments and not show up. This is true. If you're in person and you have an office, an actual office, you have to go in there and wait for that writer to come. So you're paying overhead and you're paying, all kinds of things, and then you don't show up. Okay, that is more reasonable. But what they're doing is a phone call. They're going to call you. You're going to do an application. You're going to send them $100, and then you're going to get a phone call from them. It's like a voicemail thing. Not a voicemail, a face. What the hell is that called? You know what I'm talking about. And face chat, I guess. And that's all. They're going to be talking to you like I'm talking to you, and then she sees you or he sees you, and you see them. But it's a phone call. Okay? So they did not lose anything. They're probably doing it from their home. So if someone doesn't show up, they didn't lose anything. Don't fall for that. You should not pay $100 for a phone conversation. That in itself, I see it all the time and I cringe. I'm like, please, I hope that no one is doing this. Because and I know new writers like me, like I said, new writers will believe everything. So please be careful with the self-publishing. If it sounds like crap, it is crap. If they're charging you $1 million and they're asking for your firstborn and the blood of 16 vessel virgins run away. And those are my tips for today. I hope that you can come out with something, and please accept punctuation, self-publishing. Please keep that in mind all the time. Don't fall for it. I don't want you to be out of your money and then get nothing, because they give you absolutely nothing. They give you promises. You pay $3,300, they give you promises. You pay $1,000, they give you promises. It's just promises. Unfulfilled promises. So be careful. So now I'm going to entertain questions from readers. That I had a questionnaire. Well, I didn't have a questionnaire, but I gave like a, you fill out something if you had a question for this, and then, I'll answer your questions. I got a lot of them, but I'm not going to answer some, and I'll tell you why. Some of them, the reason I'm not answering some, and I'm not going to go into detail because they were from readers, and my readers, I do not want to embarrass anyone. And even though you're not sitting there with them and that you don't know who they are, I don't want to mention names, and I don't want to say anything, because they will know when I say, they will know who they are. But I don't want to embarrass them. I just want to tell them why I didn't entertain their questions. So the first reason is because some of the questions were way personal. Okay, so this is not about my personal life. But they were extremely personal. When I say you can ask me questions, I meant maybe about writing in general, or even about my writing. What makes it tick, what, blah, 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 whatever. But not personal questions, because I'm not going to entertain them. So I'm sorry, but I can't answer your questions today, or ever probably, because they were very, very personal. Okay, and the other reason is because some of them were creepy as hell. I am a writer of the macabre. I write creepy shit. Okay? To tell you that these were creepy says a lot. N'est-ce pas? Because they were pretty creepy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going there, because to me, it gave me other vibes that I didn't want to visit. So that's why I'm not answering some. So I'm sorry about that as well. But I'm not answering those two for those, questions like that for those reasons. So the first one is, and these are good because they'll ask about books, Katya from New York City asks, if I'm going to write a fiction book, do I still have to do research? And yes, that goes back to the research that I was saying, especially if you're writing fiction. You might think because you're making it all up and it's all fabricated, you can just make everything up. You could do that to a certain extent, but once you involve places that exist, or location, places that exist. Once you start doing that, or things that exist in real life, you're going to have to do research to tie it in together. If you're creating an entirely different world and it's all fiction, it's fiction, and you created a world that does not exist, and things go in there that do not go in our world, then the research is minimum, but you still have to do research. I'm sure you're going to have to do research at some point. At some point you'll get there and you'll have to do research. And of course, if you're not writing fiction, you're going to have to do research. Yes. So if you're doing fiction, definitely you're still going to need the fiction, the research, because it's going to help you. Briston from New York City. He's actually a person. Hi, Briston. Thank you for your questions. Also, for all my readers, thank you all for your questions. Briston wants to know, demons scared the hell out of me. Have you considered making it into a movie? Okay. Demon? No. I am working to see if I can turn other ones into movies. I'm turning other of my books into film. But Demon will never be one. And I'll tell you why. Because the events it's based on true events. My personal true events. When I say that to people, they say a lot. Sometimes they'll go like, well, yeah, that's iffy. You just want to sell books. But I don't care if I'm believed or not. The fact is that I lived it. And while I was living it, it was horrendous. The book, that's backwards. When I told you to write truth, put truth in facts in fiction, this I put fiction in facts. Demon consists of mostly facts. But then I had to tie some events together because it didn't quite tie in. And it would be more like, you know, the way I saw it, it's like you're walking, let's say, on a platform, and then there's space. And then the other platform is here. That's how it looked to me in my mind. So I had to do this. And I tied it up with fiction. But it's based mostly on facts. And that is why it scares the shit out of most readers. It scared the shit out of me. The reason I wrote it was because I didn't want to go to therapy after that. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to speak to people. That was my outlet. That was therapy for me. I put it in book form, released it, emptied myself from it, although I still remember, but emptied myself from it. And then that's it. I didn't want anything to do. And then when I was writing the book, very disturbing things started to happen while I was writing the book. And I wouldn't work on it constantly because of that. It took me a while to write it because a lot of disturbing things happened to me while I was writing the book. Then once I finished it, I sent it to publishers. It was done. I don't care. And even the cover was kind of creepy because the publishers did not discuss the cover with me. But when it came back, that was a paperback. They had a little girl. They had this big demon head and a little girl in front of the demon covering her eyes. They didn't ask me. They just did that. But the little girl, that freaked me out when I saw it because the little girl at that age looked exactly like me at that age, even down to like the way the hair she's wearing and the dress she's wearing. I never submitted a picture when I was little to my publishers. When I saw that, it was very disturbing, to say the least. So I don't even know what that is. I have it somewhere, behind me somewhere, but I don't know. I don't reread it. I only reread it one time so that I can revise it, and the same thing happened. I was revising it and making it into an ebook because some people asked me for it as an ebook, and so I did it as an ebook. And the same thing happened while I was working on it. Disturbing things happened, so I don't want anything to do with it. If someone else buys the rights to it and gives me money and they say I'm going to do it, go for it. But me personally, I don't ever want to read Demon again. Ever. And I don't want to see it. I don't want to, nothing. So not Demon, but other ones I'm working on. Ethan from London says, what if I start writing a story and it becomes something else? Okay. So that is a good thing. Actually, it's very exciting, at least for me. So you're writing, it happens often to me. I don't know if to other writers, but what happens is like you're writing a story and then it takes you elsewhere. Now, let me tell you about that. That is not necessarily a bad thing. If you're writing, you're going on and you're writing, and then it switches. Okay. If you insist and go, I don't want to go there because that's not what I had in mind in the first place. Like, that's not what I envisioned my book to be. So I'm not going to write that. And you take that switch out of your mind. Now you're going to force the book to be what you envisioned it to be. But it's going to be forced. And at the end of the day, when you finish that, it's going to read forced. However, if you're writing and you don't have such a close mind, be open-minded when you write. So when that happens and you're writing and all of a sudden it's like flip and it becomes something else, go with it, because that's going to make it only more exciting. You're going to sit there and go, wow, I wasn't expecting that to happen, but go for it. Keep writing the way it's flipped. It might flip again next time, as you go on, it might flip again before you finish, or it might not. But don't fight it. That's what I would suggest. Don't fight it, because then it becomes forced. Samantha from Texas, how do you select names of your characters, the names of your characters. Really, sometimes is I see all my characters in my head as if I have met them before. I create them and they become an entity, they become a real thing. So I can see every character as I'm writing. I see them. I see them exactly like I would see anyone that I know in my mind. Accordingly, I will on occasion will look at it and go, does this look like Samantha? Okay, this one looks like a Samantha. I'll write her down, and this one looks like a John, and this one looks like, that kind of thing. But mostly what I do is, ta-da, you ready for it? Google. I go to Google and I put in female names, list of female names, and then I go in, but it's not that simple. It's just, I'm just going to pick the first ones I see. What I do is like, then I start looking at the list with that person's face and character in my mind. And then I select a name that goes with that character in that face. So I do take a lot of time getting names for my characters. I do that. Because although I get like whoosh, a list of it, it's not the first one. It has to actually match my character. The same thing, then I go surnames and then I put it together, and it can be like, it has the first name hopefully flows with the surname, that kind of thing. And it has to reflect the personality of my character. So that's why it's Google. I want to tell you something magical and mystical, but that's what it is. It's Google. Tammy from New Jersey. If you could have dinner with any writer, living or dead, who would it be? Well, that one would be Stephen King, because Stephen King has been my favorite writer, my favorite author since forever. I've been reading Stephen King since he was Richard Bachman, and I didn't even know that he was the same person. So I first found Richard Bachman books, and I started reading them, and I thought they were like great. And then one day I went to look for a Bachman book, and he has disappeared. He's gone. And I'm like, what the hell happened to him? It was such a great, author. But who I found was what? I found Carrie by Stephen King. So that I took it, and I said, I was heading to California, and I wanted to read something on the plane. So I took it, and I'm like, what the hell? It sounds interesting from the back. I read the back, and I said, that sounds interesting, and I took it. I finished the book. It was so good that I finished the book on the flight, and then I had nothing to read coming back. But I was hooked. I was hooked with Stephen King, and it was years before I found out that Richard Bachman and Stephen King are the same people. I didn't even know that. It just happened. I think I heard him say it, or I read it somewhere, that something he wrote, because I read everything. I've read everything. I've learned from him. He has a book like on writing, and I read that. So that's not fiction. That's on writing, sort of like what I'm doing here. To me, he's an amazing writer. But also, I don't do celebrities like everybody, like a lot of people do. It's like, oh, your autograph, and I make a big deal. To me, celebrities are just people who happen to be famous. There's nothing different between them and I. It's just that they are famous, and I'm not. Not to take that away from them. Good for them. I mean, they put in the work. They go, yeah, But I don't have. I'm not a fanatic. I am a admirer. I admire their work. I admire them as authors. So I wouldn't ask for an autograph. And in fact, if I went to eat with them, whether it's in a bistro at an expensive restaurant, or, hang out at a diner, that's fine. I would just like to see how his mind, ticks without the writing thing. So I would never bring up any books unless he did. And but it would be just normal conversation. I would like to see how his mind kind of works in a normal setting. Yeah, that's pretty much Stephen King. So that's all I have for you today. I hope it wasn't too boring. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to thank you for joining me for this video. I don't know that I'm going to do another one because I don't like to see my face on video. I don't like to be the center of attention. I just said that I was going to do it, and then I debated on it just like with writing. I procrastinated and procrastinated, and here it is because I promised, and so here it is. I wish you the very best for your writing, and I wish that, you know, maybe I can read you sometime instead of you reading, you know, not instead, but, you know, you read me, so I read you. Don't forget to visit, please, my website, ritasaroyan.com, Rita Saroyan, that's how it's really pronounced. And don't forget about punctuation and self-publishing. Those are important. If you did not go away with anything new, I hope you learned something from that. Don't be taken at all. So blessings and love. Until next time, maybe. Bye.